kind of taken, but also a lot of that has been feeding into the provincial land use planning of the Choiseul province as a whole, and that, I think that was within 18 months to a year. So these are some of the concrete examples that you can bring. The chiefs of the villages, they actually have made a declaration, and all the chiefs signing the declaration and committing to that. And some of these small action you can actually justify to donors and actually present to donors. And we worked at both levels, both the chiefs, but we also wanted to connect to the provincial land use planning, so that there is continuity and that we don't work with the villagers as some place and then there's a mining project that would come and just, so we make sure these linkages exist.
Is there another question? Yeah? Okay. I had a question, but I looked.
I have a question. Your decision to very useful to speak people. My question is about do you have some evacuation program in your tool?
The question was if there's some evacuation component of the tool.
Yes.
There was talking about evacuation in Choiseul, or when is it that they need to move their houses up. I think the question in New York really didn't have a scenario that warranted evacuation. I mean, it was longer in timeline. There wasn't too much talks about evacuation, much more about how do you do for protection. But for Choiseul, yes, they were talking about, okay, we're not going to, because the history of Choiseul is that they used to be living in the mountains, and they actually went to the coast about 20 or 30 years far, and so they said, okay, well, now we need to, and as a village, slowly go back up the slope. And the question was time and when do you start doing that and moving the houses up?
Yeah, so I mean,
a little bit louder, so
yeah.
in the back.
Before your presentation, our speakers presented about community-based vision for disaster management.
Mm-hmm.
So your presentation is, I think, top-down level, top-down method. So other community-based is bottom-up style. So how to connect your method to residents, people to talk them?
I wouldn't say this is a top-down approach. I think this is kind of in the middle. There is part of the work that is done in terms of modeling the impact of sea level rise and so on and so forth, and mapping your hazard, your exposure to hazard, that is done kind of separately. But then there is part of measuring vulnerability. I didn't go through all of it because I knew that the previous presentation would cover it. So I didn't give you all of the details of how do you go to having that social vulnerability score. I just gave you the map. But the base work of that is very much based, very similar work, and that was presented before, which is some of the questionnaires and engagement with the community and analyzing some of these variables. So I would say it's somewhere in the middle, particularly as you bring it back to the community for a decision-making process. So there's part of the work that definitely has to be done on the side because it's kind of analyzing a lot of things, but then you bring it back to the community and walk them through how do you take a decision, what's the best decision that's for you, and take it on an informed basis.
And then my only question was if this website is then available in the community resilience, this decision-making tool is available online?
The examples are available online. I think we're currently working for that so that the platform at least could be used by anyone for some basic models, but a lot of the examples are available. And what I like about it is that the process is available, so you can try to copy it. And that website is very dynamic, pretty much changing it every week, adding some stuff to it. So
there are actually very few examples of risk mapping together with ecological resources. UNEP has one other example, and there's some other examples that are starting to come up, but there are actually very few examples, so it's nice to see that this is coming. Jonathan Wallace, comment, and then Manchio will just show one slide of a map. Yeah?
It was a related question, I think, related to your question, Karen, about, like it seemed like many of the examples were quite specific, quite tailored to that particular case. So
Yes.
you maybe had to do some specific modeling. So
Yeah.
yeah, I was going to ask, what are the opportunities to do something more generic that could be applied in other places? And then related to that, I wanted to ask, if you were to do this kind of resilience review on a regular basis, or if it was to become a regular function somewhere, who do you think it should sit with? Who should be responsible? So, for example, you kind of maybe did it as a project where Nature Conservancy worked directly with different areas, but if it was to become a regular part of some state or some government, or
Right.
where do you think it should? Where would it be?
Okay. I'll answer your first question, which that's one of the things that we are really pushing for. That can we have, because one of the things that's most difficult and most expensive is collecting the data to enable you to do the basis of vulnerability assessment, particularly risk exposure. And we're starting to see some, at least at regional level, particularly in the Caribbean and the Pacific, some regional databases that bring some basic information for hazard mapping. So that's good. I think they're still lacking, but certainly in terms of international policy, we're pushing for that. There's no such thing at the moment. We're trying to build it, but it's, you really need to have some specific data, particularly for coastal areas. You need to have good elevation data because your satellite images have a variance of 30 meter. When you were dealing with 1 meter of sea level rise, you can't use your satellite images. So, you have to tailor it to the community and go and dig and do the ground truthing of that. The second question was who should be responsible in kind of maintaining that and reviewing and monitoring. And I think as part of the exercise, as it is a planning exercise, there should be some coordination and designation for a focal or one coordinating agency. And I think that should be done early enough in the process, because otherwise you really would lose it. And that was done in both cases.
Just related to that, do you think that would be a government agency, or does it have to be something more technical?
I think a government agency it doesn't have to be government agency, but I think government agency provides more advantages, if you will.
Thank you, and that's perfect. Yeah,
Thanks.
Thank you. We have one last example for you. There are 3 slides of a presentation that was given yesterday, actually, in another session. But I invited Mathieu to come today just because this is one of the also another rare examples of where land use ecological features have been overlapped with the risk component as a good means of communicating this ecosystem and risk together. So, Mathieu?
Thank you.
Sorry, Mathieu is, I'm getting also toward the end of the day, I should present you properly with IUCN West Africa.
Yes, Central
region.
and West Africa. I'm coordinating the coastal and marine program
Okay.
for the region.
Yeah, perfect, thank you.
And we've been working with a regional organization, regional body for economic integration that was asked by its state member to work on coastal erosion because of the cost of coastal erosion, which is accelerating quickly, and it's a strong preoccupation. Here you can see what is getting as a result near Abidjan. So here are the countries we've been working on. 11 countries, 10,000 kilometers of coast, more or less. It was quite a challenge. And we've been working using an approach that would allow us to assess the coastal risk, because we argue that working on coastal erosion was not enough. We had to think about all the different kind of risk and go towards recommendations for coastal planning, land use planning, and in this case, reducing the risk needed a very strong prospective development, prospective studies about demography, economy, and land use, and also climate, of course. So we have 3 sets of maps. One on the sensibility of the coast, considering the geodynamics and the natural evolution of the coast and the hydro-sedimentary functions of the areas. The stakes, considering that where there's no human stake, there are no particular risks to be addressed. And then a management scheme that was part of the order, la commande,
Of the mandate or the, yeah.
Okay, so that's what the result we were asked to do. So just to give you a quick look to these maps, what they look like. This is the geodynamic analysis for Ghana, Togo, and Benin. We have the downs which are represented with the different densities. The different densities in the town show the development and the size, the direction of the extension of the urban areas. There are indications about the kind of materials and the kind of excuse me, it's for me also the end of the day, and I'm not an English speaking. And also some elements of the landscape and the kind of material that you find after the coast, considering that coastal erosion will stop one day. The natural system, the ecosystem can be migrating backwards, like lagoons or sand ridges or mangroves. And in other cases, when you find rocky areas, the coastal erosion will stop very quickly, creating a cliff. And this is the management scheme expression map with different zones and sectors, considering the homogeneity of the risk, but also the territorial vocations, including the fact that natural ecosystem can contribute to reduce the risk. So this brings strong recommendations for conservation, restoration, and no development in natural areas that can contribute to reduce the risk. So this was just an example of a map that has been recently produced to address this kind of question, how we can use natural ecosystem in land use planning at long term in order to reduce the risk linked to coastal erosion. Thank you.
That's perfect. Thank you very much, Mathieu. So here's one more example, one of the few examples again, only of the third one really, and also from, I think Georgia also has some good examples of how risk mapping is a useful tool for management. Are there any questions specifically for Mathieu about this? I kind of stressed him to do it quickly because he had a nice presentation yesterday. You had a 2-hour session also.
Yes, with 6 persons in the room. There were 4 presentations at the same time on the same kind of topics, and as wanted to use the cultural diversity of IUCN. It did not have a big success.
Okay.
But
Well, you had a
all
bigger
the
audience
documentation
today.
about this study can be found on the website, IUCN PACO region, Central and Occidental Africa, marine and coastal projects and project coastal erosion. So all
Was the
documents in French
website
and in English.
was the website on the was it on
including the maps.
on the slide? Your website?
Excuse me.
Was the website on your slide?
No.
No, that's okay.
I can write this.
Okay, yeah, we can write it up so that people can find it.
So you can find the documents in English also, and the original diagnostic and methodology document. maps and the map information.
Okay. Perfect. That was another really good example, again, a rare one of how we're moving, and I think was actually good ideas for IUCN also in terms of moving forward, in terms of some new activities or some, not new, but building on this for other regions as well. I know that Asia also wants to do this, same thing.
Yes,
And
Asia is
so they
planning
need to learn from you.
to launch something, Eastern Africa also,
Yeah.
and the Convention of Abidjan, which is linking all the countries of the Atlantic facade of Africa. The decision in the Conference of Parties to replicate these studies all along the coast.
Yeah.
So this is a methodology and a type of analysis, putting together case studies, national diagnostics,
Yeah.
and the regional diagnostic, including prospective studies.
Yeah.
And it's a methodology that can be adapted and duplicated elsewhere.
I wish somebody from Robert Mather's office had been here today to look at this, because I know they want to do this. May wants to work on this, but anyway, we know how to find each other. So I think I used to know also in the GIS capacities is a little bit lacking. So working with local partners to build that up is something that I think is really something to keep in mind in terms of moving forward. So thank you again, Mathieu.
Maybe
Yeah.
just one information which is important for the developing work is that we've been using only public information
Uh-huh.
to do the work. We had some local consultation, but we did not lead to new research work. We've been using only the existing. Yeah,
Okay.
which allow to have low cost,
Lower
local
cost.
studies for regions where it's difficult to populate.
Yes, question.
I think one of the big problems, like GIS, I think is a fantastic tool. One of the big problems with the developing world is that GIS software is so expensive, especially because, most of the art GIS is so hard to get, and that's what most people know how to use. And I've been talking to other NGOs in the Philippines that are really struggling because they're not happy with their GIS software and they can't afford to get a better one, and that's what their complaints are. I mean, I'm not a GIS officer, so I
I don't know if you wanted to respond to that. Yeah, Jonathan?
Yeah, I was going to say, we used to have a similar problem in Canada, and now there's something called quantum GIS, which is so good that I think about 6 or 7 government agencies in Thailand use it themselves now. So it's free.
There are free also softwares which can be used. There is a UV software which is developed with the Geoinformation Systems and the Earth Observation Institute of Geoinformation Systems and Earth Observation, which is located in Netherlands, and they have a very good software for natural disaster risk assessment.
Yeah.
Risk mapping.
Maybe we can write that up on the board also. Yeah, Mathieu?
But maybe also GIS is sometimes the good tool. It's not always a good tool. Depends also on the scaling of. If you want to help decision makers of taking a decision in a local situation, GIS might be very well adapted. But if you work at the regional level, maybe going towards a map that will have a 5 or 10 years duration of life will be more adapted to create a common reference, common vision, and also at long scale. And this has to be combined and used together.
Marta, did you have
Most
something?
expensive of what I want to add is the data.
Yeah,
It's the
getting the
most
data.
important. It's very difficult to gain good quality data. It is most expensive, but now the prices of the data also are going down. It's more acceptable. You can work in there. A lot of free data bases which you can.
Great, thank you. Okay, Iman, last
Just the data, and I think that this is one area where I stand as a large because that might be difference because these data become available, that becomes really available, and that we push for partnership to develop, how do you call them, risk modeling tools, really valuable risk modeling tools, and regional databases where you have that. I certainly agree with that.
I think that's a very useful point. Thank you. I would like to welcome, was there another? Yeah, okay, one last, if there's a quick comment, because we want to do one last thing before we end the day.
Because
Just a quick,
Mathieu, first, thank you very much. I'm sorry I wasn't there yesterday, but I cannot be everywhere. But I was looking forward also to hear a bit from you, so you know that area I carry at heart. But now you've got that map. What is of interest is, what are you going to do with it? And I know you are working in a much larger program, so that's what will be the follow-up of that.
Yeah, I am.
So this work,
Didn't have time to talk about
this job has been validated by the Minister of the Environment of the relevant countries. It's going together with a plan of action, which is going to be used by the West African Monetary and Economic Union, which is leading the regional program against coastal erosion. It has to be at the national level integrated into the national policies and land use planning. At the local level, there are quite a lot of sectors where we recommend the creation of sectors committee of the actors, locally elected fellows and technical institutions and private sector and civil society communities to set up together local management that can become composable documents for local management. And it also at the regional level should become